I'd like to begin by paying my respects to the traditional owners of the land in which we meet, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. Pay my respects to their elders, past and present. And I do that as often as I can, and I often forget, of course, which I'm not proud of. But I do it because, of course, it's the right thing to do for paying my respect to owners of a land who were here for many tens of thousands of years, of course, before the Amrit campus was here. But also, it was the first thing I thought of because it defined the Suzanne Crowe that I know. And I've got to know John, of course, through Suzanne. But Suzanne's a great humanitarian. Equity, which is the first word in our vision, is incredibly important to you, I've noticed, and nobody is better than anybody else, or more appropriately, everyone seems to need to be elevated around you or in your mind, which has made a big impact on me. Of course, initially, it was people with HIV, people who were not anything like as respected in the community as they should have been in our own community, not to mention those throughout the world where they're very much second-class citizens or hidden. So to me, Suzanne is first and foremost a great humanitarian, and that was why those words in fact came to me today, because I knew how important it would be to you. I don't work in the field of HIV. I'm a virologist and a lab-based virologist and viral immunologist. So I did know Suzanne before I came to the Burnet 10 years ago, and felt like a kindred spirit because of that. But it wasn't until I came here that I thought more about many of the characteristics that you've heard today. And I did it quite deliberately because I came to the Burnet at a time of great change. Two major things were happening. One was the Institute was a newly merged institute. Burnet of today is actually two institutes that came together, the Austin Research Institute. I'm really sorry Mark couldn't be here, Mark Hogarth, who took over the merged institute for a year or so between Steve and myself coming. He really did very much want to be here. But also this explosive Centre for International Health that was happening at that time under the leadership of Mike Toole. And so there was a lot happening, and I came thinking, what is going to be Burnet's real point of difference? It's going to be a shtick for the next period. We had to make some choices. And I remember some meetings, some of which might have occurred even before I formally started, but certainly afterwards. And here, embodied in this one person, was somebody that I identified with very much, this molecular virologist, very interested in the fine detail of the cellular and molecular basis of disease, which is what I was interested in too. And then, of course, all this other stuff. A full-on clinician, but a full-on clinician in a world that required a deep humanitarian nature, as has already been mentioned. On top of that, and it hasn't been talked about a lot, Suzanne had this international interest. And I remember it might have been your link to an Indonesian university that I first spoke to you about. It could have been another connection. I know you've been to PNG as well, and we spoke about that. I can't remember in which order. Suzanne had all these interests in India. And you were the biggest influence on me thinking, that's the Burnet. That's our future. Not necessarily that every person had to have those skills. It was not going to happen very often. I saw that as unique. But that the Institute somehow needed to marry that humanitarian, almost development culture and ethos with its science and somehow make something greater than either of those parts, which I wasn't sure in any way how to do, but that would become the magic of the Institute. Don't know if I've ever told you that. There are certainly people in this room that have big influence on me. David's one, Mike Toole's another. But I saw that as a complete wow factor that was totally new to me to be in the same person. So that's the institute that we've tried to foster. It wasn't new. I didn't create it. It was there. It's a big reason I came, in fact, to the Burnet. But we did decide to focus on it to the exclusion of all else. So that's an impact that you've had on me, Suzanne. John, of course, wasn't here when I arrived. I got to know John, of course, and I guess there are a few reasons why I felt a camaraderie, I guess, and the first, well, and a respect. The first is more a respect and an intrigue. Though I thought also at the memorial of the late great David Cooper, AC, earlier this year, how interesting it would have been for you, how incredible to, at the peak of your career, as perfectly trained and a person with the perfect mindset, to be there in California at that time in San Francisco, which was the epicenter of this new, incredibly scary things happening for the world. And then, of course, to come here, to have the peak of your career, track that incredible disease so perfectly, I thought must have been amazing. And as I said, this felt the same for David. But more, I felt how lucky we are to have had a group of you around the world. But as Steve really referred to, incredibly fortunate to have that leadership, which did give the interface of the science and the clinician, but it was actually something as equally as important, of course, that commitment to people who are the most marginalised people in our community, without blinking. I know that was David's way of operating. I know that's yours, and I know that's so many people in this room. So I felt great respect for you through that, and wonder. I guess the other is not that I feel my job's any more special than anybody else's, but it's a bit different being a director, and so in that sense I feel a kindred spirit too, and from time to time I've had exchanges that have been really important to me, both in how to approach leadership, but also in how to do something above and beyond the Institute. And the AMRI thing's been mentioned a number of times, and the creation of AMRI has been fundamentally important for Australian medical research, in a history that will one day be told. The founder of that will deserve their rightful place as having made a very big difference to medical research in this country. So I was really very keen to recognise Suzanne's retirement, and of course in doing that, because they're so inseparable, recognise John's too, in a way that was the biggest respect I could think of, which is to gather your friends and colleagues who've meant so much to you over so many years together to talk about that time. It's about as special as it gets. We haven't done a Festschrift before, even though they have been important to me in my pre-Burnet life. I just thought that was the most special thing I could think of. So it was really significant. Suzanne and John together have also had an impact on me. it's even Alan mentioned dinners. Dinners I'm quite into movies that are about food, like Waterford Chocolate, Babette's Feast. That's actually what I think of when I go to a place for dinner. Don't laugh too much though, because I feel very similarly when I go to your cafe's place for dinner too. It's an incredibly special experience, and many in this room will have experienced it. For those who don't, it isn't just the food and the wine, of course. It's this very relaxed, yet stimulating, warm, loving environment that makes it a great experience. And so it's quite a genuine thing, and I say they're very special evenings. The other is, of course, I think a lot about what it takes to make an organisation what it is. Not just what it does, of course it's important, and I've touched on what it does already, but sort of the stuff that doesn't appear on an org chart but really defines an organisation, its culture, its spirit, its purpose. Sometimes, things people can't put their finger on, but it's the reason people come and work here when they've got lots of other options and so on. And I'm also, another movie reference to me is Sliding Doors. I don't know for those who have seen Sliding Doors, and for everyone in this room who's at the Burnet, and for everyone else, you never know what might have happened if that person hadn't come or chosen a different career. But I can only think of a handful of people for which the Burnet simply wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for them. And Suzanne and John, you're both very important in having defined this institute's magic that I think it has. The reason, as I say, that I came. And so I congratulate you both in reaching this point, which I see as a comma in your lives, most definitely. Both Suzanne and John will still have a presence, physical presence in the Institute, and they're now just freer to contribute very much as they wish. And they'll have many, many years of doing so, I'm quite sure. But it's with great respect. It's on behalf of all of the Burnet family, those who work here, those who have worked here, those who support the Institute, and those who we work for, the poorest, the most marginalised, vulnerable people in our own local community and around the world, when I say thank you to both of you.